Hey everyone, and welcome to the 5 Bytes Podcast. I'm your host, Rory Monahan. The podcast, as always, is brought to you by my sponsors. That includes Numescent, the inventors of the first and only cloud-native container management platform for Windows desktops, and also brought to you by Master Packager, an application packaging software that helps you build packages that end users love, enterprises want, and the Windows OS needs. If you enjoy the show each week, you have these awesome sponsors to thank. And now for some news. The work week for most started with disruption due to a widespread issue caused by a problem with an AWS US East region. This issue had major impacts for popular services like Snapchat, Airbnb, Disney Plus, and of course Amazon's own services like Amazon Prime, Ring doorbells, and allegedly even Amazon's own internal fulfillment center operations being impacted. Of course, non-tech companies have also been impacted, such as Lloyds Bank, Bank of Scotland, and Ticketmaster, to name but a few. Really, the way it was reported, this was all over mainstream media. The way it was being reported was like one of the largest internet outages of all time. Yeah, it was called an internet outage, but, not entirely inaccurate to say that because so many internet-connected services, I guess, were disrupted. The root cause, at the time of recording this episode, which is on Monday night, was suggested to be an underlying internal subsystem responsible for monitoring the health of network load balancers having problems. The latest update before I started recording this episode was, I believe, at around 5:05 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S., and that was that the latest updates from Amazon indicated its AWS services were progressing toward full resolution. And the company said, quote, "Service recovery across all AWS services continues to improve," and it noted it was continuing to reduce throttles on certain affected tools. So yeah, I certainly saw that it seemed like while services started to restore after a couple of hours, there was definitely still service degradation, and that would make sense if they were throttling traffic, I guess, as they were recovering. But it's interesting that one region going down or having an issue could cause such a devastating impact across all regions. It seems like there might be some design choices that need to be rethought. Perhaps there's important services that if they go down in that region, it's very difficult or time consuming to bring those up in another region, possibly. That's just me speculating because there was not a whole lot of information in the advisories as they were being published. Unfortunately, and as predicted on last week's episode of the podcast, there have been reports of several issues caused by the recent Windows updates. Now, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, I covered the Patch Tuesday Windows updates and covered the fact that it was an abnormally large amount of vulnerabilities patched for the month. So, using that logic, abnormally large, more vulnerabilities than usual, the chances of something going wrong and problems being caused by these updates increased. I think that's just logic, right? And unfortunately, it does seem like there has been already several issues reported. So first up, bleepycomputer.com reported that Microsoft confirmed that this month's security updates disabled USB mice and keyboards in the Windows recovery environment, making it basically unusable. The known issue impacts both Windows 11 24H2 and Windows 11 25H2 on the desktop side and Windows Server 2025 on the server side. Until Microsoft resolves this bug, users should be able to switch to Bluetooth wireless mice and keyboards or input devices that use old PS2 connectors, which should not be affected. So far from ideal. I imagine that'd be very frustrating if you don't have those alternatives to hand. Unfortunately, bleepycomputer.com also reported that Microsoft has been rolling out a fix for an Active Directory issue affecting some Windows Server 2025 systems after installing security updates released since September. The advisory suggests, quote, applications that use the Active Directory synchronization control for on-premises Active Directory domain services, such as when using Microsoft Entra Connect Sync, can result in incomplete synchronization of large AD security groups exceeding 10,000 members, end quote, which is funny because many years ago I can remember something similar happening with AD and large group memberships. So it seems like this is something that has reared its ugly head once more. Now, thankfully for this issue, there's already a known issue rollback, so you could potentially leverage that. The recent Windows updates for October are also reportedly causing smart card authentication and certificate issues due to a change designed to strengthen the Windows cryptographic services, according to Bleep Computer. Affected users may observe various symptoms, from the inability to sign documents and failures in applications that use certificate-based authentication to smart cards not being recognized as cryptographic service provider in 32-bit applications. The advisory says, quote, you could detect if your smart card will be affected by this issue if you observe the presence of event ID 624 in the system event logs for the smart card service prior to installing the October 2025 Windows Security Update, end quote. So yeah, I guess if you want to be proactive and check your event logs before rolling out your updates, you could maybe save yourself some hassle. Microsoft explained that this known issue occurs because this month's security updates are automatically enabling by default a security fix designed to address a security feature bypass vulnerability CVE 2024 30098 in the Windows cryptographic services built-in Windows service that handles security-related and cryptographic operations. This fix is enabled by setting the disable CAPI override for RSA registry key value to 1 to isolate cryptographic operations from the smart card implementation and block attackers from creating a SHA-1 hash collision to bypass digital signatures on vulnerable systems. Those who are experiencing authentication problems do have the option to manually resolve this, and there are some steps included by Bleep Computer in their article, and I'll share a link to that with this episode, which is episode 410, and you can find that at 5bytespodcast.com if you'd like to see what the steps are. Finally, on the issues front, Microsoft have also fixed a known issue breaking HTTP2 localhost connections and IIS websites after installing recent Windows security updates. The bug affects both Windows 11 and Windows Server 2025 systems, where users will see connection reset errors when loading pages or using apps that try to connect to the local host IP address. Microsoft confirmed the known issue and linked it to a bug in the http.sys Windows-based web server for ASP.NET Core. Microsoft added that this bug can be triggered by a variety of conditions, including the timing of recent device restarts and update installations, as well as the device's internet connectivity. Luckily, for this one, there's also a known issue rollback, so you can opt to use that. And this one also has a set of manual steps that you can do as well. And I'll share a link to that one with this episode as well. And you can check that out if you're affected by this problem. Worryingly, these issues have all popped up pretty quickly after Patch Tuesday. I would not be surprised if there are more issues to report on next week. Microsoft has removed 2 more compatibility holds preventing customers from installing Windows 11 24H2 via Windows Update. The first safeguard hold was added in April for systems running security or enterprise software that uses SenseShield Technologies' sprotect.sys driver due to a known issue that could trigger a blue or black screen of death. Microsoft also removed a compatibility hold added in September 2024 because some wallpaper customization applications could cause various problems, including errors, incorrectly displayed wallpapers, disappearing desktop icons, desktop preview issues, and virtual desktop issues. It is quite interesting that these holds are being removed now so late in the game when Windows 11 25H2 has already just started to roll out. The Verge has reported that thanks to Microsoft PowerToys, Windows 11 can now automatically switch between light and dark modes. You can now automatically switch between these modes on Windows 11 based on a schedule or simply when the sun rises and sets. The latest light switch PowerToy is similar to the Auto Dark Mode app that's been around for some time and has been popular, and you can also use it to set whether the shell apps or both should switch automatically. So, nice little feature, nice addition to PowerToys, which is pretty awesome tool if you've never tried it. That could be one of the tips for the week. Try Microsoft PowerToys. There's a whole lot to it. OpenAI is reportedly not planning to ship GPT 6 this year, but that does not necessarily mean that OpenAI will not release any new models, according to bleepycomputer.com. OpenAI currently has several models in GPT 5, which the default being GPT 5 Auto, which automatically switches between regular and reasoning models. So it's being speculated that there could be additional enhancements, improvements, or maybe variants of GPT-5 before the end of the year, but no plans for a GPT-6. Although I will add that within the article itself, there is speculation still on if there will be a GPT-6 by the end of the year, with some suggesting that there will be. So I don't know. It still seems up in the air, but bleepycomputer.com at least seems to be confident that there will not be one by the end of this year. Bleepycomputer.com has reported that F5 disclosed that nation-state hackers had breached its systems and stole undisclosed big IP security vulnerabilities and source code. F5 stated that it first became aware of the breach on August 9th of this year, with its investigations revealing that the attackers had gained long-term access to their systems, including the company's big IP product development environment and engineering knowledge management platform. It's reportedly unclear how long the hackers maintained their access, but the company confirmed that they stole source code, vulnerability data, and some configuration and implementation details for a limited number of customers. Despite the exposure of undisclosed flaws, F5 says there's no evidence that the attackers leveraged the information in actual attacks, such as exploiting the undisclosed flaw against systems. F5 also stated that it had no evidence that the private information had been disclosed. F5 claims the threat actor's access to the big IP environment did not compromise its software supply chain or result in any suspicious code modifications. This includes its platforms that contain customer data, such as its CRM, financial, support case management, or iHealth systems. Furthermore, other products and platforms managed by the company are not compromised, including Nginx, F5 distributed cloud services, or Silverline systems source code, according to F5. After discovering the intrusion, F5 took some remediation actions by tightening access to its systems and improving its overall threat monitoring, detection, and response capabilities. And they shared what those steps were, and they included rotating credentials and strengthening access controls to their systems, deploying improved inventory and patch management automation, as well as additional tooling to better monitor, detect, and respond to threats. They implemented enhancements to their network security architecture, which is a little bit vague, I admit, and they also hardened their product development environment, including strengthening security controls and monitoring all of the software development platforms. F5 have said they're still reviewing which customers had their configuration or implementation details stolen and will contact them with guidance. Bleepy Computer reported that to help their customers secure their F5 environments against risks stemming from the breach, F5 released updates for Big IP, F5 OS, Big IP Next for Kubernetes, Big IQ, and APM clients. Now, this is despite any evidence of, it being leveraged in attacks. So, yeah, they're saying that get these clients for an extra layer of security because I guess they've been developed and released after that access has been revoked. But really what they're also claiming is there's no sign that there was a supply chain attack. There was no code modification. So those clients should be secure. But yeah, this is huge and worrying news because F5, maybe other than say NetScalers, F5 is pretty much synonymous in enterprises. So, this could have pretty widespread impact if they find in their investigation that there is a wider impact than they're currently reporting. Hopefully, there's not. The US CISA has said that threat actors are now actively exploiting a high severity Windows SMB privilege escalation vulnerability that can let them gain system privileges on unpatched systems. This one was tracked as CVE 2025 33073, and the security flaw impacts all Windows Server and Windows 10 versions, as well as Windows 11 systems up to Windows 11 24H2. Microsoft patched this vulnerability during the June 2025 Patch Tuesday, when it also revealed that it stems from an improper access control weakness that enables authorized attackers to elevate privileges over a network. The US CISA has yet to share more information regarding the ongoing attacks and the details of that, but it did add the flaw to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. Microsoft announced several important upgrades for the Copilot app on Windows recently, including that it now lets you invoke Copilot with voice. Copilot Vision is now also available to all users, and Windows 11 Taskbar is getting a dedicated Copilot experience. Additionally, NeoWin.net reports that Microsoft is expanding Copilot actions to local files, a feature that allows Copilot to take action on local files on your behalf. Previously, Copilot Actions had the ability to act within your browser, and now it's enabling support for local files, so it should be able to handle much more workflows. So, for example, NeoWin suggests that you could select a bunch of files and tell Copilot what to do with them. For example, you could select several photos and ask Copilot to straighten them and delete duplicates. I'm sure you could probably get it to go through documents and find a reference to something and then list every reference and where in the documents that reference is, that kind of thing. So yeah, it could potentially be quite powerful. But of course, with any of these AI services, what is your appetite for ingesting in your local files? And there's also some alternatives already out there for local AI instances that I've covered on previous episodes of the podcast. So if you wanted something that is providing the benefits of a large language model and the more so the natural language querying aspect, but one that's not going outside of your network, then there's some alternatives out there. But now, this episode's scripts, tricks, and tips. We'll keep it short again this week, but I saw a blog post, so I think it's a blog post on Substack, from Dennis Stetskov, where he's basically talking about the great software quality collapse. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have covered, I guess, dedicated stories to this topic, but I've definitely opined throughout the years on the podcast of some of the bad practices in development leading to over-the-top resource utilization and consumption. Like the amount of memory being chewed up by applications nowadays is just crazy. I'm becoming old because I sound like an old man complaining, but it's true. If you look at just the quality of software and the landscape of Windows desktops today in enterprises, it's just a wild west, unfortunately. And Dennis breaks this down into great detail. And I also noticed, by the way, just by chance, after having read Dennis's article, I saw James Rankin is going to be at EUC Forum in London on November 11th, and it looks like he's going to be doing a session on a related topic as well. So, yeah, it's, I guess anyone who's working in this space has noticed the same problem. So, interesting to read about it nonetheless. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of control we have over it because we don't control all developers and all vendors. But that's it for this episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening.